All right, everybody. So this is day one of the beta. Keep in mind, a lot of things are going to change during the beta. Quickly talking with Senpai while he was in chat. Decoy damage is already being looked at. Everything's already looking to be tuned more appropriately. But I wanted to try to give my best gut feeling of how a day one summon Valkyrie, Decoy Amazon was working, how a late game version of it was working, and just like an overall sense of how much better in Season 4 Mercenary and Summon AI is feeling. So let's get into that. What we have is a representation of a level 75 character that is a Summon Amazon. So what does that mean? We're maxing out Valkyrie, we're maxing out Decoy, and we're maxing out Crit and Penetrate as the two most important synergies that I would consider walking into day one, day two of the ladder. Putting 1 point down into Power Strike, just so that we get that one passive increase, and then any additional dump points we're going into Pierce. For the actual inventory on the character, we're trying to represent plus 10 to skills. The reason why that's so important is because Valkyrie allows you to summon additional Valkyries once you hit that 30 skill point cap. So the items that we're wearing are both good representations of items you could absolutely have at the beginning of the ladder, as well as one stand-in item. Spirit Sword, a Spirit Shield, a Lore Helmet, Piece, Random Belt. We are using 2 to passive and magic, so you could literally buy 3 to passive and magic gloves at this point. And then we're using a 2 skill amulet because you could have 2 to Amazon skills or 2 to passive and magic or 3 to passive and magic at this point. On the swap, we're using a Harmony Bow. The reason why we're using a Harmony Bow is A, run fast, don't have teleport yet, and B, it's actually really nice to be able to give your summons vigor so that they can more quickly engage with the monsters in front of them. And then to round out the +1 skill that we're missing, we do have a skiller. What else do you want from me? And then the rest of this is just charms that are representing the life and the all res that you would have at this point. For our stats, we're literally just putting in enough to be able to use the Spirit Shield. If you were so lucky as to find a lidless at this point, obviously you wouldn't need to put in this much. And then everything else is going into Vitality. The Mercenary himself is wearing 3 pieces of gear, which I think, you could reasonably have at this point, but also are like fairly good representations of the utility that this character is supposed to be bringing to you. And then I can show you what that upscaled version looks like for the end game. They're using a Lacerator to be able to proc amplify damage. This is going to greatly help his damage, your Valkyrie's damage, and your Decoy's damage. He's using Lava Gout. Remember now that as of Season 3, Enchant actually enchants in a radius around you. So your Mercenary is going around and actually enchanting your Valkyries, and if he's close enough to them, your Decoys. Extra damage, extra attack rating, what more could you want? And then we are using the nerfed Cyclopean Roar. So while this no longer has minus physical res on it, it's still going to be casting Battle Cry on strike. What that means is that, again, minus enemy physical res in an area around him so that your Valks and your Decoys are doing more damage. What do you do the entire time while you're playing this character? You kind of just ferry them around using Vigor, and then when you run into a pack, recast anything that isn't there already. And then something that I don't think a lot of people are really going to pick up on, especially in the early game, is using something like Inner Sight. So Inner Sight in an area around you is going to reduce monsters' chances of hitting and also reduce monsters' defense, which is really nice considering on the lower end, your Mercenary and your summons are going to want any bonuses to being able to hit that they can get, and Inner Sight is something that you can do in the meantime while you're waiting for them to clear something out. Now, how does it actually all feel? So I can go ahead and include just like some clips of it fighting in general right here. Inner Sight. Inner Sight seems to help a bit. So that's okay, right? We're talking about a day 1 build. Only plus 10 to skills on a summon build where you're going to want to max out plus to skills and as many auras as possible. And it's doing all right. you know, I would say day one on something like a Nova Sorceress, you're actually having a lot of trouble clearing out cows. And here you're kind of not. Now, the current problem is that Decoy just kind of doesn't do enough damage. I already alluded to it, but Senpai is going to be taking a look at them, probably tuning them up. I would say that the decoys are something like 1/10 as powerful as your Valkyries at this point, and that's probably not the intention of them. Now, what does the build look like on a higher end tier of gear? I can go ahead and show you that. Keep in mind, all of this is like pretty ridiculous once you take a look at it, and it's putting in a lot to try to compensate for some of those issues that we're having with Decoy, where they don't really do enough damage. Okay, so the build is going to look a lot different by endgame, and this is trying to maximize your Valkyrie's damage, your Decoy's damage, your Mercenary's damage, and also bring more utility to the table. So we swap in a couple heavy hitters to try to actually give our character more things to do and to be more useful. So we're going to be sitting on a Faith Runeward Bow. This is going to give us a weapon to actually attack with, which I'll go over in a quick second. And also, obviously, bring Fanaticism both to our Decoys and our Valk and to our Mercenary. So huge damage increase there. We're still using Peace to be able to summon that additional Valkyrie. As many plus skills as we can put onto the build, with as many passive and magics as we can put down here, along with the Torch and Annie. And then the big change here, and this is, I think, the best utility option that we have at this point, is in Atma's Scarab. So we're going to be able to proc amp damage, and that's really important because we're actually wearing a lot different gear on our Mercenary. On swap, obviously we're using a CTA and a lidless. You're going to have a CTA and a lidless at this point. In addition to that, we are using dual Wisp projectors to have the strongest Heart of the Wolverine. In Season 4, Heart of the Wolverine AI has also been increased, so it doesn't just run into melee combat. And I've really only had to resummon it like once or twice, whereas I feel like you used to have to resummon it basically once every encounter. For our skills, I'm not representing a level 99 character here. It's a level 93 character, and that's what you need to max out all of the synergies and only put 1 point into Guided Arrow. Now, why are we using Guided Arrow? Guided Arrow says always hits, and since we're also maxing out our Pierce chance here, which is basically 100%, every Guided Arrow has a chance to be hitting a target 3 times, and that means that we are drastically increasing our chances of proccing Atma's Scarab, bringing that much-needed amplified damage to our summon kit. On the Mercenary, there has been an additional change in Season 24 to how Might Aura works. So we're actually running Last Wish and Templar's Might on an Act 5 Mercenary. So why are we double dipping here? Putting this together, we get a level 25 Might Aura. And while the Mercenary would typically cast a higher level Might Aura than this, Mercenary Might Aura did not get buffed, whereas Paladin Might Aura did get buffed. So using this combination is actually increasing like total DPS by something around 2,000, not only for Mercenary, but also for our Valkyries and eventually for Decoys once those are fixed. And then in addition to that, we're still just using Cyclopean Roar because Amplify Damage and Battle Cry can both stack. Lava Goat is still on here. I think realistically you'd be using much different gauntlets, but Enchant is still a nice proc to put on the rest of our summons. And then he's just using other random gear because I didn't want to spawn anything else because I'm lazy during testing. But what does this end up looking like now? You're still running around. You are pre-buffing as much as you can with Battle Order's Battle Command, and you will need to recast that at different points as you resummon your Valkyries. But you're able to run in, drop your Valks, drop your Decoys, and then you're supplying a source of amplified damage and getting the highest damage output of your Mercenary that you possibly can. I think this is probably what the end game of the build might look like, or at the very least, this is a physical damage-centric version of it. We did also test out a lightning damage-centric with an Act 3 Mercenary. They were running dual Might Aura as well. We were running an Infinity. I think what's cool about this build is that there are a lot of different ways of running it. So either pure physical, hybrid physical lightning, which was working pretty well, or even going just pure lightning, running an Infinity Amazon Spear on yourself, speccing into Power Strike, not worrying about like penetrate too much since Power Strike really doesn't care about that, and then kind of moving a bit more of the damage onto yourself and trying to abuse as much minus enemy res as possible. All in all, very engaging way of playing a summoner build. I think it's a bit more engaging than just about any other summoner. Obviously I played Summoner Necro, I played Summoner Druid. I'd say this is a lot more fun than Summoner Druid as it currently feels piloting. Whereas Summoner Necromancer obviously has a lot more that it brings to the kit. Early game summon Necromancer, if you're not just going like pure golems and also dipping into like dual curse, just doesn't feel as like engaged as this playstyle does, at least for me. And I'm really, really excited to see what the total build looks like after it's been tuned through the rest of the beta. If you saw anybody else try this out and you feel like they came up with a better itemization, please let me know. I definitely want to keep taking whacks at this because I just feel like there's so much to unpack here. We're literally talking about a form of Amazon that has never existed before. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I look forward to testing more things for you during the PD2 Season 4 closed beta soon.